friends in podcast world, it has felt like forever since we did our last podcast.
Kind of, it has a little bit, Ben.
Right?
Yeah, we're a
missed
little behind.
week.
Sorry.
We missed a week.
Welcome back. This is Ryan talking. We are excited. We are actually doing a almost dark podcast in the treehouse tonight. Yeah, dusk. It's sunset. We have a friend here all the way from the East Coast avoiding Hurricane Dorian at the moment.
At the very moment.
Actually,
yes.
no. He really wants to get back to his family so that he can be there, and we're going to do that. So, Russ, welcome. We're going to introduce you in a little bit. We wanted to tell everyone that's listening, thank you for listening. We also want to say we're really filled up with burros and fries.
Mm-hmm.
We ate a lot of Mexican food before climbing into the treehouse.
Yes.
Also, I'm on my second stout.
And now we're in a confined space together.
Peanut butter stout, rosé, and Old Rasputin. To you, Russ, we're thankful that you are here with us.
We're going to pour one out for Tony, too, who's not here with us tonight.
Tone.
To the Saucy.
Yes,
to the Saucy.
Oh, and also Janine and Tom all the way out in Naples, Italy. Thank you for listening. That was huge. And thank you for your encouragement this last week. We just wanted to say that.
So tonight we have our good friend, Russ, here. And Russ and his compadre, Tony, who he sadly left behind for this trip.
Sorry, Tony. We have a picture of you on the wall right now, Tony, so you're kind of here.
You're kind of here with us.
We drew faces on it, but you're still here.
We had this experience, which maybe some of you out there have had this experience before, where you meet somebody for the first time and you're like, oh, we're friends. Oh, hi. We're already friends. So we actually met Russ and Tony from the Table Network in Bethel Seminary, and we didn't know what they were going to look like. And so we're
sitting in this room.
Yeah, we're in the waiting room.
Don, Cody, Ryan, sitting in a room going, who are these people?
We're trying to
Rick is going to introduce us to.
Kind of figure out like when they're coming, you know? And so all of a sudden a bunch of like Anglican priests
with collars
come out, and I'm like, I don't think that's them. I feel like it's not them. And then like a few minutes later, some guys covered in tattoos and
offense to Anglican friends and brothers and sisters out there with your collars. Was not what we were
expecting from who we were about to meet, that we had been kind of informally introduced to over like email and such.
Right. But then we did see Russ and Tony come out, who looked like they should be escorted out by security.
Yes.
We knew that they were our guys.
They looked like people. They were not in the right place. Let's just say that.
These guys, your car broke down.
The seminary's doing something nice for these guys.
So at any rate,
they look like ruffians. They must be
we
our
got
people.
to meet them, and it was just incredible the way that sometimes God works in people who have never met to like be saying the same thing, and you hear things that you have said echoed back to you from people you've never met, and you're kind of like, oh, this is crazy. So we were fast friends, and we've kind of been journeying with them for 18 months or so, and
from across the nation.
Totally.
Yeah, and we're so excited to finally have you on our podcast.
Man, it's definitely an honor to be with you guys, for sure. And I speak not just for me, but for Tony and for everybody in the Table Network. And I can definitely echo the sentiment in terms of like looking around this room, wondering, okay, we're meeting these people, and it's at a what is it?
Seminary.
Seminary.
Might as well be.
Hey, later we need to point out that Russ says things funny, audience, and we're going to point that out later.
He's from Florida.
He says a lot of words that are all off.
That was Ryan's soft, close to the mic voice. It sounded good.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
That was Ryan whispering about Russ right in front of Russ. Yes, there will be some things that come out. I have a North Carolina accent. That's where my family are from. So as much as I try to say things like you guys, it just doesn't work. And
it's okay. We'll only make fun of you a little bit.
I appreciate it.
As we get started, we would just love if you would kind of give our listeners an overview to what is the Table Network and kind of why are you doing the work that you're doing?
That's a good question. Yeah, Table Network started in 2014. I was coming out of pastoring Missio Dei, Chicago, pretty large church in the city there. Not from Chicago, but had moved there in 2010 after some time in ministry in Asheville, North Carolina. And we were starting missional communities like crazy and, right, planting churches and all these cool things were happening.
What's a missional community?
So missional communities, these like smaller communities, right, of some people would call them small groups, but they're a little different. They're really aimed at reaching people that are in and around them versus just groups that are getting together from a church. And so we were starting and multiplying these things like crazy. A lot of cool things were happening. But in the midst of all that, I found myself looking through the stats within our church movement and other people that we were connected to and going, hey, about 70% of the population that we're hearing about that are uninterested in the church, it's true. Mm-hmm. They're actually not interested in any form of modern church, mega church, micro church, missional community church, whatever you want to call it. They're just not going to come. And my heart just really broke for that community. That was me growing up. I'm the dude that didn't grow up in the church, wasn't going to come to your church, and was discipled to Jesus on a freight dock. Literally, like that's how I came to know the Lord. And then through that, discipling my girlfriend, who's now my wife of 21 years, and just watching us and parents and brothers, right, like come to know the Lord and then plugged in to church. And so I just have always had this sort of like longing within me to get the ministry of the good news, right? The Great Commission, if you want to call it. The ministry to love and disciple people to walk with Jesus. To put that in the hands of every single believer has always been at the forefront of my heart and mind. And so in 2014, the Table Network gets started. And that's really just it. At the core of it is going, most people are uninterested in the church. I want to start a network family that connects and empowers people that have a heart to meet them where they are. And so we're going to help put the ministry of good news in the hands of every single person who believes. We're going to help them love and disciple the neighbors and friends and the tribes that they run in. And we're going to see new church families form among those that are outside and uninterested. Wow. And so empowering that work coast to coast, and now even in some international circles, is the Table Network.
And I have to say, like, when we first met you and heard about what you were doing, it was this sense of like, oh my gosh, we're not the only people out here that feel this way. You know, like there's other people out there who want to help people become the best version of themselves, like the version of themselves that they were created to be, which our friend Marcus introduced to us as a phrase for discipleship, which I think is so on point. Like, how do we introduce people to this love that continues to reach towards them to help them become the person that they were created to be? But it felt really lonely. Mm-hmm. It felt like we were doing something weird. Yes. And we met you and we were like, oh my gosh, we're not the only weirdos out here. It was really like a comforting feeling.
It was definitely a kindred spirit.
Yeah.
For sure. I remember leaving that, like immediately in that room going, yeah, the Spirit is saying the same. I think I actually said that. The Spirit is saying the same thing to you that he's saying to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then you gave us language and even statistics to like really put to what we've been feeling and thinking, what we're pursuing. And you know, the 30-70%. Talk a little bit about that.
This is the kind of the same question, Cody.
Okay.
So that's why I was like, by the way, you guys can't see me shaking, raising my hand. Like,
Brian does this thing when he wants to talk that he like tenses his shoulders up.
I do, and I raise my hand like a little kid in elementary school, like because I'm so excited to share. But following that same thing, Cody, and it's actually asking another question about Russ's story. For those of you that are listening, the reason we do Uncommon Good, the reason we do Table Network, is because we want to introduce you to a God who loves you, that you may have been repelled at some point by his people or an organization that says it's of God. And yet, we don't want you to throw out the God with the bathwater of organization. So we want to introduce you to a message that says you're loved, you are valued, and there's a God who gives life for you right now.
Actually, as you are.
So that as you are, I want to go back to your freight dock guy, which bounces off Cody's question. What did freight dock guy actually made you form Table Network the way you did? So tell us about freight dock guy, because his first thing wasn't about Sunday for you.
No, that's kind of the sort of the fun spin on the story that I didn't even really put two and two together until years later. So 1997, I'm engaged. My wife and I are living together. Made us the moral couple in the family. We one up to everybody. Neither one of us have anything to do with church, ever. Nor do we want anything to do with it. And she becomes pregnant with our son, Blake. So there's a lot of things that I could do in my wild background, but being a deadbeat dad wasn't one of them. And so there's like, whatever reason, right, there's this thing in me that, like, I got to go to work, and I got to work hard, provide for this family. We're going to get married.
And there was nothing spiritual about that.
Nothing spiritual about it at all. Apart from just God using things, right? Mm-hmm. Even some of the broken things in our lives to pursue us. Which just blows my mind when you think about it. But so I go to work for Southeastern Freight Lines, moving freight. It was a great job, good pay, good benefits, right, for a young guy. And I'm working 12 midnight to noon, 5 days a week, moving freight. And there's this older black guy that I worked with named Tommy Tiller. I'm 20. Tommy Tiller's probably early 40s. And he's this former hand-to-hand combat instructor, drill sergeant in the Army, retired after 16 years, working on for a freight company now. He looked like Mike Tyson. I actually thought he was Mike Tyson the first time I saw him. I actually did a double take. Made a little joke. I was like, Mike, Buster Douglas really threw you for a loop, bro. You moving freight now. And then he looked back at me, and I was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that. So,
bad call.
Bad call.
He might hurt me.
But here's what's crazy. The long story short here with Tommy was he was different than anyone I ever met. He was kind in a way that I'd never seen. He was patient. He worked hard. When people would freak out, he didn't freak out. When guys would get handed jobs that they would cuss the foreman up and down, he would say, praise God, I've got work to do. Let's get started. It just blew me away, man. And he kind of befriended me, and we started hanging out a little. And one night, there were some guys on the other end of the break room that were telling racial jokes. And I was on the other side of the break room eating my lunch, and Tommy walked in on the punchline. And he walked in right next to him. And I thought for sure, like, this dude's going to clean house. My background is blue-collar kid, getting a lot of mischief. Respect is idol. It's king. That's what I live for. There's a lot of things you could do. Walk away from a fight is the one you can't do. So to watch Tommy look at these guys that he could have just had fun with and say, hey, that's sad, boys, I'll pray for you. And he walked away. I literally put down my lunch and I walked out on the freight dock. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You got to go back in there. You got to fix this, man. You got to get your respect. You got to, if you don't do this, then they'll do this. And what will people think of you? And he just looks at me and smiles. And he says, slow your roll, man.
Slow your roll.
He said, them boys don't know what they're talking about, man. He said, they need the same grace that Jesus gave me. They're just broken. So what I'm going to do is just pray for them. And I was like, okay, I don't get it, bro, but you're unlike any dude I ever met. Tell me more. So he just started unpacking the gospel for me. I went home, dug out a Bible that I got back when I was just this old Gideon, like little New Testament Psalm, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Proverbs, peace.
My dad actually used to hand those out years ago.
So I took it to work the next night, and Tommy gave me a verse, and I read it, and we started talking, and I would work next to him unloading freight 12 hours a night. And we would just talk about Jesus and life, and every question would lead to another question, and that question would lead to a story, which would lead to another question, which would lead to a story, and we would look at the scriptures around the break room. And before long, he started pulling some other guys from the dock together, and was just discipling us in a very natural way. I didn't know I was being discipled. I just know that there's this moment where I believed in Jesus, and I'm going home telling my girlfriend everything. She thinks I'm crazy. Of course, I did tell her that Jesus was a black guy that looks like Mike Tyson.
Yes.
But through the process, like, I become this believer. She becomes a believer. We start discipling family members, and they become believers. And then I plugged into a church.
Wait. And then,
Yeah.
So that whole time before, and with Tommy,
Yep.
it wasn't a, hey, nice to meet you. If you want to hear about Jesus, come to Sunday at this building. What?
Yeah, and that's why I tell the story the way I do. I think it took me years to realize it, but it helps other people, I think, grab onto the fact Tommy never invited me to go to a church service. One, I wouldn't have gone. Two, he lived on the other side of the city than me. It wouldn't have been conducive for our family to plug into anything that they were a part of. But what hit me years later is Tommy didn't need to. Tommy learned how to be the church where he was and love and disciple people. You are the church, love and disciple people, what Jesus called us to. It's so crazy that these things that are in the scriptures that we've been called into are oftentimes the least of the of the number of things that we actually do. And yet,
so
it's
good.
at the core of Christianity.
What do you mean love and disciple? What is that word disciple?
Disciple,
what do
I
you
think,
mean?
means to just, for me, it's about being present with people. I think it's about listening to people. I think it's about passing on good news, right? In your story, in light of their story. I think it's inviting people to take a step of faith in whatever God's doing in their life at whatever moment it is, which is why you can disciple someone, right, forever, till you leave Earth, just as you can be discipled until you leave here. And then I think lastly, it's just teaching them to walk in what the Lord's showing them, what the Lord's saying. So it's, at the end of the day, I guess it's ultimately about learning what it means to just be human, what it means to just be loved, to learn how to live as someone who's held by a love that will never let them go. Like, I could never grasp that.
And you know what's interesting is that I really like that idea, that picture of it. It's learning what it is to be human, because the original relationship that we get invited into is Jesus becoming human.
Yes.
To show us what it means to be human so that we can help other people become more human.
Yep.
And I think like that truth, that becoming more of who we actually are, right? I think is part of the good news, as opposed to this other truth that this not lowercase t truth that kind of gets thrown around of a relationship with Jesus actually makes you less of who you are, right? Like become less of, right? When we hear this, right? Become less of you so that like there's more of Jesus. And there might be some truth to that, but it doesn't mean to shrink back. It doesn't mean to
conform
right.
to some picture of what a Christian should be.
Right. It
which
means
is often what we feel.
Right. Lean into like who you were created to be. This humanness of you, becoming more you, becoming more human, becoming who you were created to be is actually what God desires of us, and to be in relationship with Him, to know Him in that.
Think about all the things that are out there right now, just even in the just business, you know what I'm saying? Just in regards, universities, entertainment, politics, so many things pushing for unity, love, friendship, hope, right? Joy, purpose, meaning, forgiveness, grace, like all these things, right, that we're hearing about from all these different circles. It's natural, right? It's in you. It's like these are things that we long for naturally because this is what it means to live in the image of God. These are things of God. So I think discipleship was like coming alongside of somebody and helping them awaken to this life of faith in the one who made them and died for them and rose for them, so that they can learn to live into these things, to be human.
So,
which is actually good news, right?
Right.
That's the good news. Not like you're a piece of crap and change everything about you and stop doing all the things that you love because that's the only way that God's going to love you. Like,
no,
that's not good news. Can we just agree on that?
not good news, therefore not the gospel.
Right, exactly.
right. This humility, grace, authenticity, things that people have left the church because they didn't see it is actually what the gospel is.
Right.
So,
yes.
So you have been a part of creating many of our people of uncommon good. We're a part of hearing about a book called Slow Down, slowing down, letting the Holy Spirit move people, and what we do. And I think of our friends in Italy again. They're sitting down, listening to friends that have a very different faith background. They're just loving them. They're listening to them. They're telling their story, and they're letting God move the ball of their relationship with God. Amen. So you've written some material called Reclaim that we want to take our uncommon community through. Can you tell us a little bit about Reclaim? Because pretty soon we're going to be starting an every other week, whether you call that bi-monthly or
bi-weekly,
or
which
bi-weekly,
is, I hate ambiguous language.
We're just going to call it every other week for the fall and into spring. We want to bring people through Reclaim, but what is it, Russ?
Yeah, so Reclaim got started, if I piggyback off that story with Tommy, just that bug put in me from the get-go. never left. So whether it was in youth ministry, being an associate pastor, turning the ship of a large church, planting church, right? In Asheville, planting churches in Chicago, that bug's always there of just getting the ministry of reconciliation in the hands of every person. And so looking at that, I just kept going, okay, over here on the left, I've got this large percentage of our population, 70% of society, and if you go to major cities, it's even larger, that are uninterested in anything related to church, period. Why? And as I started to press in on that, I'm finding, okay, they were handed this story of who God is that's opposite of everything Don was just sharing. They were handed a Christianity that's opposite of the story of Christ and what he's done. They were handed a Christianity that was about what you do. Almost like this like Nike version of Christianity. God came so that you could just do it. You know what I mean? And I'm going, no. The gospel is you couldn't do it and you never can do it. So someone else did that for you. What's it look like to live and dwell in him? You know what I mean? That's like these pushbacks because of what they were handed. They were handed this idea of church that was a place that you have to go to. It's not something that you are or people you journey with. It's a building. It's a service. They were handed discipleship is listening to a sermon and going through some questions in a small group, not, right? Like life on life, walking with people in light of what they're seeing and hearing from the Lord. So looking at these things were like a common barrier across the board on the left. Now check this out. On the right, I'm finding that a number of people within the church, coast to coast, were handed the same beliefs and practices. In other words, because of what they were handed and living that out has actually resulted a lot in why people on the outside are going, no thanks.
Yep.
And so I'm looking over here and I'm going, okay, these beliefs are keeping the church at port, unable to actually sail out to sea and meet people where they are. And the same beliefs are why people over here are out at bay with no desire to head in port. And I'm looking at the two and going, what if we could help people dive into what Jesus has actually said and done about God, life, faith, rest, right? Walking with him, being the church, joining him in the renewing work that he's doing in others' lives, discipleship. How to even live that out and form community among your brothers and sisters who don't know the Lord yet, to literally be the church where you are, and to walk in that in a way that's very unique to your wiring. As Don was, talking about a minute ago, we took those 9 truths and put together what's called the Reclaim Journey. And we're seeing it play a key role in helping people develop a new language, a new practice, even a new framework for how to live in the movement of Jesus so that people outside actually get to encounter the movement of Jesus. And that's huge.
That is.
And through that, we're just seeing a whole new movement, I feel like, of the church that's now shaping coast to coast. I can't believe this, but I just got some of our numbers the other day. The Table Network's 5 years old. It's a network of people. It's a grassroots movement of the church, is what I say. It's made up of a variety of different people and expressions, etc. But it's 5 years old, and I was told when we got started that if you could see 20 churches, 20 disciple-making leaders, church families form in the next 5 years, you guys be killing it. And we're like coming up on like 180 right now.
Wow.
And I'm just like, what?
That's crazy. What I love,
but it
too,
all
is that
stems to that reclaim journey. Literally, that's what's empowering.
You said it's a grassroots movement of the church where I know many of the people that are a part of Table Network, as are we, or things like that, are people who go, oh, no. I don't do church like you do church. This thing I do is different, but we love God. We love what Jesus has given us. And we want to follow that model. So they wouldn't call themselves church people. You're in this church-ish kind of world as we are. And so that's amazing.
So I have a question. We're super excited to be introducing this material. And just as you said, walk through it intentionally with people that we're journeying with, but what do you think is the reason for that gap? Why... If you're able, and you keep sounding the alarm, and lots of people keep saying, there's a gap here between the church and people who want absolutely nothing to do with church, and it has to do with beliefs that the church has been practicing, and those same beliefs kind of repelling other, what's the disconnect?
The disconnect for the people that are outside?
what's the disconnect for what's the resistance for the church to go, okay, yeah, we need to really overhaul this whole situation?
You want me to be honest?
Yeah.
So my experience, and I think I can speak to what I have seen time and time again, but just so I'm clear, it's something that I saw in myself time and time again. I think there's three things that we fail to remember that I'm seeing. Humanity might talk about grace a lot and long for grace, but what I'm finding is people at the end of the day are petrified with grace. We would much rather have the law. See, the law offers you a checklist.
Yep.
It offers you something that you think you can manage, something that you can use to measure how you're doing, something you can use to map out progress, because we're infatuated with progress, performance.
Right. If you checked off so many boxes on your things to do list today, you feel good about yourself.
You're doing great.
So we love the law because the law gives us that checklist. And what we don't realize is that the scriptures say the law it was given like a mirror. Like the mirror will show you that your face is dirty, but rubbing your face on the mirror will never make it clean. So, literally, Paul calls it the ministry of condemnation. That's what he calls the law. The ministry of death. That's what he calls it in 2 Corinthians. Its job is to paint a picture of perfection with God and humanity. But once you look at it, you realize it's not you. Now, the good news of the gospel is there's a God who says, I know it's not you, but my son came to fulfill all that should be you, and in him you will dwell in relationship with me and with each other. Common solidarity is found, right, in the resurrection. And as much as that's good news, there's something in humanity that says, no, I don't want that. I'd rather have the law. Give me anything but indiscriminate grace, Capon said. Give me something I can measure and for myself and something I can measure you with.
That's right. More importantly, right?
Right. So I think just a love of the law is what I'm finding. Number two, I would say a love of temple. Right? Like you read the Old Testament narrative, God's pretty content in dwelling in the tabernacle and traveling with the people, being among them. And they're like, no, we need a temple. And it's not, he literally says, that's not my plan. No. But they fight and push and push and push. He goes, okay. And so they get this temple, and eventually the temple becomes this thing. It's almost like, give me a list, number one, law. Now give me a place that I can go to, and I can check these things off, and I can move through the motions, and I can find the forgiveness or feeling or emotion or high or low or whatever I need, right, to fulfill this thing, and then, okay, I'm good to go. And so people are at war with this, Jesus looking back at us and going, oh, just so I'm clear, yet you are the temple. Through my resurrection, my spirit will literally dwell in and through you. Mm-hmm. And as beautiful as that is, there's something, again, in human nature that's almost I'd rather just go to a building once a week.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I found is I think we like kings, which again is an Old Testament narrative that you see the religious people of Jesus' day fight him on. They're like, no, we want a king. And God, right? And then Scripture's like, no, you don't want a king. I'm your king. I'm good enough. You don't need a king. And they're like, no, we want to be like everybody else. We need a king. And as I find that, I travel around and I meet with people in the church and they see what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. They see their friends that are outside and uninterested, and they see the hope that's lost, and they see what could actually happen if we learned how to be the church where we are, like the actual church in the Scriptures, not this jacked up version, you know what I mean, that people have been handed. Mm-hmm. And really, truly how to slow down and love people well and disciple them as they go and just be happy in that, be fulfilled in that. They'll hear that, and then right at the last minute, I find people go, I'd rather have a list. I'd rather have a place to go.
How can we track that
someone
spiritual
tell
growth?
me what to do. Exactly. And then you start to throw just the broken down humanity of leaders into that, right?
Yep.
When your identity and security gets tied to the success of how many nickels and noses you counted on Sunday, when that happens, right? As much as you know what's needed, there's something in us, man, that just goes back to that security of this stuff here and now, right? Versus someone else.
So good.
So if I had to sum all that up, I'll say it this quick. 2 Corinthians says that we've been given a life of faith in what is unseen, not what is seen. For what is unseen is, right, eternal. For what is seen is temporary. It took me 15 years in ministry to understand that. I had built my life as a leader around what I could see and finding security in it. And I taught other people to do the same. 2 steps to this, 3 steps to that, 7 to this. You know what I mean? All the things that we try to measure, map, and manage. And we use the law to do it. And we use the temple, the old understanding of it. And we need a king, right, to tell us what to do. And we're like, we feel pretty good to go from week to week. Mm-hmm. And all the while I'm looking at it going, man, I don't think we want a life of faith. I think we ultimately want a life of sight, of something we can control.
I love
and I
that.
think it just breaks down, man, at the core. So what I'm getting at is, instead of like meleeing the church or structures or systems over it, I'm going, I think it's just a human nature issue.
I agree.
And it's going to be preaching and teaching the good news of all that Jesus has said and done, right, and declared and accomplished, and inviting people to a life of faith in that. And it's going to be a journey of helping people start to grab on to what they need versus what they kind of temporarily want. Because churches are notorious for just giving people what they want. You can fill some seats, right, by meeting what people want. But what's so crazy is what we want in our natural state of humanity never leads to what we actually need. Which, if you keep digging, actually goes to what you truly want. What you really, really
right
want.
there. Yep.
Because daily, we will do what we always do to get what we haven't gotten yet but hope for. But there's that phrase that if you do what you always do, you get what you always get. And so you may not ever get what you hope for unless you change the way. Yeah. And we want to be a part of what Reclaim is introducing people to grace, where you will reclaim your identity of being loved as you are without earning it today. Yep. And welcomed into a new life that's to the full. So we are going to do that Reclaim, the Reclaim content. And Don, how are we going to do that?
So before I say that, I want to start with this. This was another one of those weird connections where we had already coined this phrase for Uncommon Good, that we want to reclaim truths about life, faith, and being human. That was like our original tagline. Like, we want to reclaim
Kindred
truth about
spirits,
life, faith, and being
around,
human.
Right?
And then they show up and they're like, hey, we created this study called Reclaim. And we're like, well, that's convenient. So, yes, we're going to be doing a study group, every other week, which I think is the most clear way to say. It's going to be every other week starting in September. We're going to be sending out information via email, on social media, so be on the lookout for that. It's going to be several weeks of study. You can get all the information about it online. And our hope in this is that this will be a group of people that commit to journeying through this, to really dig in and choose to wrestle with this content together, and in the process to reclaim some of this truth about life, faith, and being human.
And listeners, if you're hearing that, you know that we are in San Diego. We're going to be doing that in San Diego, but wherever you are, we can help you facilitate being the house that just shows hospitality and invites people into a conversation. Amen. You don't need any seminary degree. You don't need any title. You don't need any collar. All you need is a place that says, come in, sit at this table with me as an equal. We all belong here, and let's have a conversation, and we can help you do that.
And I want to add this. If you're like, I don't believe any of this. This is all completely foreign to me. Frankly, I think you guys are full of baloney, or substitute stronger word. That's fine.
You can say that on this podcast.
We need you in this conversation. We welcome you and that voice into this Reclaim conversation. For sure. We want you to be there. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome to the Reclaim journey with Uncommon Good.
Hey friends, Cody here. I bet you thought that episode was over. It's not. Surprise. See, because what happened was we kept talking after we wrapped up the episode, and it was such a cool conversation. We were really glad that we kept recording, because Russ started talking about this series on Netflix called The Chef's Table France, which is a series that Don and I watched when we were going through the Reclaim journey. And it is really, really good, and Russ does a great job of capturing what it's all about. And we were so stoked that we kept recording, because the conversation went to these really cool, rich places. And you'll see how it all connects to the larger conversation that we're having in this episode. So buckle up for about 15-ish more minutes of the Uncommon Cast.
So Netflix,
Oh, yes.
Chef's Table,
yes.
France. What? The next, not just the Chef's Table series, but the one that's like titled France.
Oh yeah, those are good.
We watched
One season. Did you watch Alan Passard?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Well, because
Okay.
Cody and I did Reclaim with Tony.
There you go.
But what? Tell me.
It's this guy who's just a brilliant chef, considered one of the best ever on record. He's in France. He's 3-star chef, right? And he decides he's going to stop serving meat, and just literally stop serving meat. And everyone freaks out. The restaurant's going to plummet. It does take a little dive, but he brings it literally as a vegetarian restaurant into another 3-star restaurant. It's insane. And now he's earned like a third one. You know what I mean? And it's brought back, meat and fish into the equation. And it kind of tells his story and all that he's gone through and what he's learned along the way. But here's what was so beautiful about it. In his restaurant, again, this top tier restaurant, there are no recipes. There are no recipe cards. There are no recipe books. There are no cookbooks. They do not exist. Every day, food shows up on a truck that's fresh to that area. And he takes that food and goes inside and looks at it with his team, and they come up with what they're going to make that day. And they write none of it down. His whole thing is the dependence that creates is what keeps that creativity fresh and in the front of your hearts and minds, right? As you continue to just evolve as a restaurant. And I'm looking at that and I'm watching it and I'm going, dude, that's it. Like, the secrets to the kingdom of God are like, or another way you could put it, the secrets to good cooking, okay, are like the kingdom of God, in that they're always hiding in plain sight. And once you truly understand food, when you truly start to dig in and understand food and ingredients and how to cook, that's what he shows us in this, then you can make just, fantastic food anywhere, anytime, any place, because you understand food and ingredients and how to cook. And my whole thing with Reclaim was saying, man, I want to see people learn how to love people where they are, to disciple anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place, to not be bound to come to my thing, to not be bound to we should go to through this study, to not be bound to some small group curriculum. And if we could teach people, if we could help people grab on to all that Jesus has done and declared so that they had a foundation in that and could really truly learn how to be the church and how to really disciple people like he did, then they could disciple anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place. And they could do it in a way that they could go do the same somewhere else.
That is so
That's Reclaim.
different. That's
That's
Reclaim.
literally what it is.
And you can see that religion is spelled RECIPE.
Yep.
Right? That religion equates recipe, where this is something different.
That's perfect, the way you just put it. I've never put it like that, but I'll steal that from you from now on. I'll give you credit a few times.
Well, I'm just stoked that I nailed the
it's his.
spelling.
Yeah, religion
got
is
dicey there. I was like-
RECIPE. And what we're doing is going, no, a relationship with Jesus is learning about who he is and what he's like, to be able to pass that on and to know how to pass that on and meet people where they are with it at any time, any place.
Because how often is your relationship with anybody the same as your relationship with any other person?
Right.
Right? And so to
Right.
think that we could create a formula that's going to produce the desired outcome for everybody is ludicrous. It's
Right.
craziness.
Well, that's just agenda. That's just lacking love, lacking connection. Here's the agenda.
Yeah,
Like, totally.
because people are freaking messy.
They are.
And they don't follow the plan. They don't fit the mold. Rarely do they behave the way that you want them to. And unless you are agile, unless you're able to adapt and respond appropriately, like you're out of luck.
You are. And I think Jesus knew that adults learn on a need to know basis. So he always disciples people where they are in relation to what they heard, what they saw, right? What's going on in and around them. And somehow we see that, and then we come in and go, okay, I got an idea. Here's where we're going to go, you know what I mean, with this person that I'm trying to love on. Instead of just kind of meeting them where they are. And I'm finding that a lot of Christians have a heart to do that, but they just don't know how, because they're like, well, I don't have a study to go through with them, or I'm not prepared for that. And I'm going, well, then let us equip you for that.
Right. Well, and I just remember when we heard you talk the first time about slow down, one of the things that struck me was and this was kind of the first time I thought about this, but we have created a Christian culture of just insatiable. Like, we're just constantly looking for more input because we have been taught and we believe that we never reach a point where we have had enough. We've never had our fill so that we can then pour out to somebody. Yeah. Like, I just need a little bit more input. I need to consume a little bit more, knowledge. I need to hear a few more podcasts, read a couple more books, but I'm not yet equipped.
Yeah.
Right? And like, can we cut that out? Like, we're just becoming gluttons.
It's counter to Scripture that says all the fullness of the deity exists within you. You've got it all. And with the Holy Spirit, you've got it all. You can welcome people to your table at your house, have whatever, and you have everything you need in your dependence upon God to be a witness to them, to share good news with them. And you don't need all the sources that we fill our heads with thinking that that's what's going to make us valuable in someone else's life, because you are already valuable.
Even if you feel like a broken mess.
Even if. And you are a broken
And for
mess.
me, that's all the better. I was meeting with some guys today about just relatability, because they're like, I can't really find common ground, with my neighbor. Or I can't really find common ground with my friend who's not a believer. And I'm like, you're equally broken. You already have common ground with them.
You're a human.
Oh.
Yeah, and he's just like, but like when it comes to discipling, I'm like, so just out of curiosity, is he wrestling with stuff? Well, yeah, he's going through some stuff right now. When you heard what he was wrestling with, what did you do? So I just started talking to him about what the scriptures say about that and what he could do different. I said, you never shared with him how you wrestle with that?
Right.
Let's that next wine and words. Let's talk about all our common human needs that we all have in common.
All of our failings.
Actually, and we're being serious. Come to our next wine and words, because that is what we're going to talk about.
When you find rest in the finished work of Jesus on your behalf, and he's moving in and through you until you leave this earth, you have this ability to just be honest with people, which allows you to relate to people. And pass on the story of how good God is in the midst of your fears and failures and frustrations. Not how good you are and how you wrangled religion to submission this week and managed to overcome this thing that you're going to fall to soon.
Right. And not only that, but it's in our ineptness. Right? It's our failings. Yes. It's my inability to move the laundry from the washing machine to the dryer before it stinks that makes me relatable to people, right? Yes. So if we can just be like, hey, I'm screwed up too. Like, I mess up. I do stupid. You couldn't believe the stupid stuff I do in my life on a day-to-day basis. Like, we're the same.
And
I just happen to know Jesus. That, right?
Totally. People connect with our stories of failure. They don't connect with our stories of success.
You know what? So we just said this too. We had an event a little bit ago, and we talked about the problem of loneliness, and we talked about how we all are designed for a desperate need of community and connectedness. And we referred to a C.S. Lewis comment where he said that the common denominator, the starting place of all friendship and community, is you two.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And when we finally
I love that.
Understand that, and we see you too. Now I can relate to what is your faith. I can relate to what is the belief that keeps you going, and I can relate to those things, and that is good reclaiming of good news.
So good.
And for me, one of the game changers for the whole reclaim journey was, and this is in Slow Down as well, we talked about how Jesus gave the Great Commission, and we often translate it to be go and make disciples, when a better translation is actually as you are going, disciple people.
Yep.
And so just like everything that we've been talking about right now, it's like as you're living your life, as you are broken and messy and mess up all the time, and you're relatable, as you're just being a human, bring people along with you and teach them about Jesus.
As you're forgetting to move the laundry, as you're forgetting to not flip people off on the freeway, as you as you are going about your normal everydayness.
As you're falling out of the treehouse because you had too much Rasputin.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, by the way.
Disciple people. Man.
Only a little bit.
But I think you're right.
Yeah.
You know, Cody, that's it. I was talking with someone even today. I was talking with a leader that was just saying, man, I just don't know if I have time to really live into this movement of Jesus. And I said, well, what do you do? Where do you spend your time? He's like, well, I work. I have a family. I'm with my kids. I'm at the ballpark. I'm at dance practice. I walk my dog. I said, okay, so how about you just love on people while you're doing that? Pass on good news as the Lord leads.
That's right.
And he goes,
Boom.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that seems so much easier.
But the people that are like hungry or open to like learn more or discuss more, you know, what do I do with them? And I said, well, do you eat? And he goes, well, yeah. I said, okay, so why don't you gather them together and eat together while you talk about the good things of Jesus? You know, like while you're already eating that meal, just bring people along.
Yeah.
There never needs to be one more thing on the plate.
Right.
Following Jesus isn't another thing. It's just being with Jesus in the everyday thing.
That right there is freedom, right? Dude. Like it's actually as you're doing the things.
That's it.
Right? It's not like leave the rest of my life behind and go carve out time to do Jesus stuff.
Yep.
It's like, no, when you're waiting at dance practice, when you're sitting for the 11th hour at baseball, when you're at Starbucks seeing the same people because everybody goes to the same Starbucks every time, you know, like those are the things and those are the places.
Yeah.
That's it.
So religion equals recipes.
Yeah.
Right? Following Jesus equals scratch cooking.
I like that.
I dig that.
It's good.
And let's just let it be that simple.
Giddy up.
Watch God move. Good stuff.
Thank you, Russ.
Yeah,
that was like
man.
a whole other episode.
Yeah, we had like
I know.
a second podcast.
Sorry.
Totally. Or just a long one. Like, that was good. That was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I loved how dark it got. Sorry, these Christmas lights did work in here. Audience, I wish you could see how dark it is in the treehouse right now.
The sun has really set on us.
It has. We can hardly see each other. We can't even video or take pictures. But we are so happy that you have listened to this, that Russ, you have joined us from Florida in a treehouse in San Diego in the freaking dark.
I love it. It's been great for sure. And it's definitely been just, you know, as always, man, it's an honor to be with you guys, to be walking with you, to be a part of what God's doing in and through Uncommon Good. So, amen.
Amen. Cody, can you just tell everyone how to connect with us and how they can reach out to us if we can help them in any way?
Yeah, so you can find us online, uncommongoodsd.com. You can find us on social media at uncommongoodsd. And in addition to the Reclaim journey that we're going to go on, we've got a ton of events happening in the fall, and you can just visit our website. It's a lot of them are right there on the homepage, but if you want to go to the events page, you'll see all the events we have going on. We're blasting that out on social media too, and we'd love to just see you face to face. So if you want to get a hold of us, or if you want to come to one of our events, that's the way to do it.
Oh, and one more thing too, we referenced a couple. We referenced Russ's and the book called Slow Down. We'll put a link to that.
Oh yeah,
that's produced by Table Network and
Russ. Where can we find Table Network?
Table Network, yeah, man. TheTableNetwork.com.
Nice,
so
easy.
You can check out the website. We've got plenty of resources on there just to meet anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place, right where they're at. You can learn more about what we're doing and any way that we can serve or help you live into this story of Jesus. We're all about it. TheTableNetwork.com.
Awesome. Well, as always, thanks for listening, everybody.
Woo!
We
Love
will
you guys.
catch you next time.
Peace.
Love you.